Alright, so in this video we're going to go through your Wisdom Literature Final. Alright, so feel free to print this out, have it in front of you somewhere, and take your notes. Feel free to fast forward, rewind, anything that you need to do, and we'll just kind of go through this one very quickly. Alright, so right in number 1, list the 4 main genres of instruction in the Bible. So basically what I'm looking for there is you've got historical, right? So the types of ways that the Bible instructs. So historical, the whole beginning of the Old Testament, from Genesis, all the way through the lives of King David and all the kings. Much of that literature is all historical, but it's still instructional, right? So historical, the law, and just more didactic and direct teaching. So like the law / teaching, however you want to say that, is another genre of instruction. Not necessarily historical. It was, the law was given in a historical context, but it's somewhat different than just reading through the law is different than reading an account of an individual's life. The third one is prophecy, right? So through the prophetic works we get instruction. And then the fourth one is the wisdom literature, which is the focus of this class. So those are what I would consider the 4 main genres of instruction. Possibly gospel might be a little different, but really I feel like gospel, like the 4 gospels, are really historical, right? And Jesus tends to blend a lot of things into there. I mean, he gives his own law, he gives his own prophecy, his own wisdom, but I would tend to classify gospel probably more in the historical line, because it is an account of his life and teaching, but it really is kind of a blend. And then I would put the epistles, you could possibly make their own category too, but I would really put the epistles probably in that law / teaching category, right? So where Paul is giving specific instructions on how to live, right? So it's different than law, but if you have a broad category of law / teaching, then the epistles would fit into that. But so anyways, for this question, it's historical, law / teaching, prophecy, and wisdom. Number 2, explain in your own words how chapters 1 through 9 are unique in the book of Proverbs. So I want something to the effect that 1 through 9 are an introduction. They're not necessarily Proverbs themselves. They're more actually like a psalm that is an introduction to the Proverbs that come later. And they are not necessarily, the authorship is not known really on 1 through 9 there. Alright. Number 4, other than the introduction in the first 9 chapters, list the other 4 contributors to the book of Proverbs, right? So one of them, obviously, Solomon, right? So that's the easy one. But then there are 3 other contributors. One of them is King Lemuel, right? And then it also talks about a section that is the words of Agur, A-G-U-R. And then for the 4th thing, it's not an individual, but there is a section that says these are the collections of the sayings of the wise, right? So that is kind of like a catch-all. So I want that one in there too. So Solomon, Agur, King Lemuel, and the sayings of the wise. Number 5, what does the word mashal mean? That means to be like. To be like. Number 6, in Proverbs 1:2, the word instruction also carries the connotation of discipline. Explain why this is significant. So I want something to the effect that it shows that that it's not just enough to know what to do, that we have to discipline ourselves to do what we know is right. Right? That there is a self-discipline involved in acting correctly. Number 7, explain in your own words the difference between perceiving wisdom and acting wisdom. So perceiving wisdom is the ability to know intellectually and conceptually what is the right thing to do. Acting wisdom is the ability to perform in a way that lines up with what you know to be true from your perceiving wisdom. Number 8, explain the concept that wisdom is a choice. And so all 3 of these, 6, 7, and 8, are all somewhat connected, but it's along these lines that if there is a perceiving wisdom and an acting wisdom, then that means that somewhere along the line, in order to be wise, there is a decision that's made, right? And that it is an action, and so therefore somewhere along the way, a decision must be made to act on what you know to be right. So wisdom is a choice. Number 9, what is the key concept that must be taught in order to create the determination to follow the path of wisdom? So this one is the fear of the Lord. There must be something taught to students, to yourself, to whoever, about the fear of the Lord. That reverence and respect for God influences all the other wisdom decisions that we make. Right? Number 10, explain something significant as discussed in the class for each of the following 3 books. Alright, now, these next 2 questions, 10 and 11, they're both long, right? So when you get to your final, you can park in these and just take your time, but these are the 2 that you'll do on your own. So this one, we did an entire section on other books, right? Entire video on these 3: Job, Ecclesiastes, Song of Songs. So I'd like you to go back in and have something that stood out to you for each of these 3 books from our class discussion. Right? So that one is from the class discussion. Number 11 is from your own studies that you've done as part of the independent study part of this course. Right? So number 11, list 2 important principles or discoveries that you learned during your independent study for each of the following 3 sections. So we had 3 sections to this course. The beginning dealt with the structure of Proverbs. The second one dealt with teaching wisdom. And then the third one was the wisdom of other books, right? The other wisdom books. So basically what I want is, fill in some important things that you learned from your independent study for each of the 3 sections, right? Okay, and so this last page, it's a lot to do on your own, but this is an independent study course. So go through, make sure you've got some good stuff with this. This shouldn't be, in terms of memorization, a very difficult final, but it will require you to go back in and look at some of the things that you've studied over the last few weeks and be prepared with that. Okay.